Hey class, Mr. Andrews, I wanted to give you a couple tips for how to go about writing the topic-based reflection that you should be completing first and foremost today. So to start class off, before you get to anything else, before you start reading about the stickiness factor in the tipping point and all those other things we're going to do, I really want you to take some time to simply write out your 250-ish word response to the prompt that you'll see linked just above this video. That is to the topic-based reflection, where you're asked to compare the ideas from the Law of the Few to the characters in Harrison Bergeron. So yesterday in class we read the book, or rather read the story Harrison Bergeron. We became familiar with the world in which it is set. We also listened to the audio of it as well. You can go and access both in yesterday's agenda. So if you forgot about the story, you want to revisit the text, or maybe you weren't in class yesterday and you want to make sure that you understand the story, you can both listen to and you can read the story. Again, it's a really short story. But what you want to start with is by selecting one of the four main characters in the story. And what you're simply going to do is you're going to ask yourself, out of the three types of influencers, which is what Gladwell, as Gladwell sees it, what type of influencer would you say one of these characters is most like or most unlike? You can go either way. You can make it a comparison or you can make it a contrast. You may remember that there are three types of influencers, at least according to Gladwell. The first one is a connector, which yesterday we learned is a person who has lots of connections, as the name suggests, a person who knows a lot of people and is well known, right? This is the kind of person who is either famous in certain circles or just famous in general. It is also the second kind of person is a maven. That is a person who is an expert, a person who is considered very credible and well known, or has a lot of influence because of their credibility in their area. Finally, the third kind is a salesperson. A salesperson is the kind of person who is incredibly persuasive, who is really good at taking people's opinions and turning them in some way, and is very effective at doing so. This doesn't have to be someone who's famous. It could just be someone who simply has that kind of charisma and the ability to change people's minds. Now, you're going to be comparing, again, one of these characters. So choose one of these characters before you move on. But once you've chosen one of these characters, what you want to do is think about what kind of character are they before you can even start to make comparisons. Now, there's some ways you can do this, right? We want to think about characterization because that's really one of the best ways to figure out how the authors go about revealing the character to readers, right? There are four ways an author will typically do this. We talked about this a little bit last semester, but you may recall speech and behavior is the most obvious one. What they say and what they do tells us a lot about who they are as a character. That's one way we learn. Another way is through inner thoughts and feelings. Are there places where we see in the story, for instance, if you're writing about Hazel or George Bergeron, are there places where we get some insight into what their own thoughts or feelings are? Are there some clues we get to their feelings that tell us something about them as a character? Third are physical traits and characteristics. We learn sometimes about a character through the way that they're described physically. This is very much a part of Harrison Bergeron. Finally, we learn a lot about characters sometimes by knowing what other people in the story think about them. So if you're looking at any character in the story, you might also look for hints about what other people have to say about them. How people seem to respond or react to them says a lot about how they're regarded as a character, okay? So what does each of these kinds of details reveal about the character you chose? So let's say I chose Harrison Bergeron. I would want to look at what are some of the things he said and did. I would also want to look at, do we get any insight to his own interior feelings? Do we get a sense of his physicality? And do we get a sense of how people are responding and reacting to him? All of these added together are details I could use to compare then or contrast with a certain kind of influencer. So let's say I'm looking at Harrison and I'm going to make the argument that he is most like a maven. I would need to find details, right, that show that he has maven like qualities. Now, I could go the opposite way too and say that he's actually the least like a maven. And I could compare that saying, okay, he definitely, a maven is like this, he's not at all like that. And I can use these kinds of details to support that kind of argument. So that's a quick rundown on some tips that you can do, some things that you can do in terms of the kinds of details or evidence you want to include from the story as you make your comparison. So again, after watching this video, make sure to click on where it says submit yours here right above the video. That's where you can go to the assignment. It has the full instructions. Make sure to complete that first. That should be priority number one because you want to have yours in today. After that, you can go then down to a video that'll give you an introduction to the stickiness factor. And then you're going to do a little bit of reading from the chapter. I'm not asking you to do all of it, but I am asking you to read uh, about half of the chapter, honestly. And then you're going to be doing a 3-point quiz just after that. So make sure to take the time to do that. And guys, I will see you in class next time. It's taken me a while to end the recording here.